What's up, you data-hungry Amazon sellers? This is your host, Tommy Berenger of the Sell, Rank, Win podcast from Merchant Words. And in this podcast, we give you the answers to your most burning questions, actionable insights that you can take away and implement into your business today. So let's go ahead and dive right into today's episode. What do you say? Let's go. In this episode 5, we're going to talk about some listing optimization strategies, as well as always giving you some actionable tips and tricks at the end. So stick around and let's go ahead and dive right in. What's going on, my Merchant Wordians? How are you all today? Thank you for joining episode 5. And on this podcast, we have a very, very special guest, an expert in her field. She started out as an Amazon seller herself. She is a contributor to Search Engine Journal and now owns her own agency that helps brands manage their presence on the Amazon marketplace. Without further ado, I bring you Robyn Johnson from Marketplace Blueprint. How are you, Robyn?
Good. How are you today?
I'm awesome. Thank you so much for joining this podcast, and it's a pleasure to have you on.
Always a pleasure to be able to share a little bit about my nerdiness when it comes to marketing on Amazon. It's a tricky place, and it can be frustrating, especially if you're used to other venues.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what we're doing here today, right, is just helping those users out and kind of navigate that pain point for them, and trying to help them out with these problems here. Yeah, so Robyn, if you can go ahead and tell our listeners a bit about yourself and how you got into the Amazon space.
Well, before I sold on Amazon, I didn't have any digital marketing experience. I didn't really have any business experience. That was over a decade ago, though. And we started with just $100. We were kind of doing the Dave Ramsey thing, and we were just trying to make some ends meet. I worked for a church, and so, they say the benefits are out of this world because the pay is not. And I was like, if we could just make just a little bit extra on the side, man, that would just change our whole world. And so we took the 520s out of our emergency fund. I can still remember them in my hand. It felt like $1 million. We took it and we bought things at garage sales. It was a great time to start a business because I had like a 6-month-old and a toddler. So I was toting them around. I'm pretty sure my son's first sight word was garage. And, from doing that, we went over to selling on eBay and selling on Amazon, and we started to really blow up when we started to sell on Amazon as well. And so we were doing a lot of buying in stores, and then we moved into buying wholesale. And as our business grew and grew, we grew the $100 into $1 million in just a few short years.
Oh, wow.
And then, what we found was Amazon was this huge pain point for brands. And so the brands that we started working with wholesale, we started to provide some extra services, trying to help them resolve some things, make sure their listings were updated. We found that we were able to help significantly increase the amount of sales and total revenue and even profitability of a brand by doing things like optimizing the listing, maybe helping them with advertising, enrolling them in special programs. And so as we got better and better at that, we ran into companies that were like, I because of my relationship with my brick and mortar stores, having you as a 3P seller just doesn't work for us. Can you manage our stuff on our behalf? And so we started an agency. I guess it would have been about 3 or 4 years ago. Maybe it's getting closer to the 4 or 5 now. And we have worked with brands of all different sizes, from companies who, had the idea, but they were pre-revenue, to companies that are big enough where the street that their company is located is named after their company, and have lots of brick and mortar, representation. And so it's been a lot of fun getting to work in partnership with brands. And I've got to tell you, I love what I do. I love getting to partner with small brands looking to kind of grow, and usually medium-sized business. So, companies like China Mist Teas and things along those lines that allow us to really kind of take a product that we really believe in and help make sure that the people who want to buy that product are able to find it on Amazon.
Very, very cool. Love that. It's always good. It feels great to help people, no matter what it is. I think that's always, and it's great that you love what you're doing as well. And it sounds like you started with the arbitrage model then?
We did. And, we didn't know anything about listing optimization. It was completely foreign to us. But, now that we've been doing it for so long, we really can't imagine trying to sell any product, whether you're a 3P seller or a brand owner, unless it's something like a Nike shoe or a box of Legos, without really optimizing the listing.
Yeah.
It just, it seems like leaving money on the table. And we did a lot of coaching with people who did wholesale and retail arbitrage, and they'll say, well, what's the one thing that I really need to learn to kind of be able to sustain the next changes in the market, or to be able to continue to grow my business? And I really feel that listing optimization, basic advertising strategy, and those are the things that are most important for those who are really looking to make a long-term play here for the Amazon platform.
Absolutely. Totally agree with you. I think that is something that sellers and even bigger brands overlook, is the optimization of their listing, especially their title, and then, just some good old fashioned PPC, sponsored ad campaigns. I know there's some new strategies out there, but, just sticking to those old ways and really help as well. That kind of leads me into my next question is, what are the top 2 problems that you solve for your clients over a marketplace blueprint? What are these brands and sellers begging you to help them with?
Well, it really can have a wide range. So there's some folks that say, I have a great product. I know people are searching for it, but I'm stuck with this one thing with Amazon. Maybe they can't get their listing updated. Well, we had a brand that whoever created their listing misspelled their brand name, and they've been trying for 3 months to get it resolved. We fixed it in 30 minutes. And then sometimes it's a bigger problem. So one of our larger clients, they had a problem with unauthorized sellers selling actually at above retail value. People who were, so they were trying to figure out how to get rid of these unauthorized sellers. They had all sorts of, they were like, for each individual product, there were like 10 listings of each of them. And they really wanted to kind of centralize it. They wanted to be able to kind of control the way their products were being displayed and make sure that they're displayed in a way that was consistent with their brand. And so for them, that's the first thing we started cleaning up. And then after that, we started running their advertising. And we have been able to significantly grow their year over year revenue and profitability on the marketplace with those things. So that's been really, really fun. So it can be anything from, I'm trying to accelerate our growth to there's a problem on Amazon in either the way people are finding us or the way that our product is being represented or sold, that we can work with folks.
Very cool. Do you do any reinstatements, like if someone has their account taken down?
We don't specialize in reinstatements. The 2 people that we recommend for that are going to be Cynthia Stein of eGrowth Partners and Chris McCabe of eCommerce Chris. We've sent lots of clients there. And then if somebody has a specific problem with, they need an IP attorney that knows Amazon really well, we generally recommend Casey Hewitt Vaughn.
I know some people that actually need their listing, their whole account reinstated. So I will let them know about these companies you just mentioned and people. Thank you for that.
Oh, no problem.
And I read your latest article over at Search Engine Journal about how to get the most out of your sales with Amazon's brand analytics. And thank you so much for the mention, by the way, for merchant words in there. And it was very informative. How, in conjunction with Amazon's brand analytics, how would you use merchant words with that?
So if you're not familiar what brand analytics is, so once you're part of the brand registry program, and the brand registry is like the abracadabra of the Amazon world. Once you're in this brand registry program, you have to have a live trademark. If you don't yet, use what you want to Google, Amazon IP Accelerator Program, and that's how you can get in faster, usually within 10 to 14 days. Oh. It will open up programs that are really important, like sponsored brand, which is the headlines ads at the top. It allows you to add video, that weird content that's in the middle of some pages. If you've been trying to figure out how people got that, brand registry is how they do that. So you have access to that, and also brand analytics and the brand dashboard. So the brand dashboard, you can actually go in there and it will tell you, these are the listings that are not optimized. These are the images, the listings that need better images. And in the brand analytics, it will say, it helps you provide you with research according to your brand. So you can see what search terms are popular and which terms are more popular than others. And you can even see, for this particular search term, this is what somebody clicks on. Now, sometimes when people say, oh, look, there's a search term tool there. Now I don't need merchant words or any other search word tool because this is going to do that. Now, I've actually tested and I'm going to put the same query in one and the same query in the other. And with brand analytics, it will kind of snake out some of the kind of fluff out some of the words, but the number of words that you're going to generate for each keyword that you enter is significantly smaller. So For example, there was one that I did. I just put garlic salt in there, and I got less than 10 results on brand analytics, and I got hundreds of results on merchant words. So both of those have their pros and their cons, and both of the data sets are important. We're just going to use them a little differently. So when I'm looking at brand analytics, I'm looking at when somebody types in this search term, regardless of who's in the first position, this is what's getting clicked the most. And this is how many people, of the 100 people that come here, maybe 25 are going to click on this one particular link. And then 10% of those convert. We see that there's a lot of people going to this one link and a lot of high conversion, well, wow, this is a really relevant match. If our product is like theirs, that's a really good green light. If our product is very different from that, then maybe this keyword isn't necessarily as relevant as we thought. The other thing we can look at is, if I'm trying to loosely connect maybe a keyword that I think might be relevant, and so I see, okay, there is a connection here, we can actually see that, that competitor that we were kind of basing why this would be a good kind of train to chase, maybe they're not converting very well. And so maybe that gives us an opportunity to rethink those things. And then things like the market basket analysis, it'll say, when people buy this, when people buy your product, they're also buying this competitor product.
Yep.
So that can tell us what are things that you want to put together in a bundle, or maybe additional product opportunities. So it's a real depth of information, and it's up till now, it's been pretty rare to get data like that, specifically from Amazon. The one thing I'd like to reiterate on the brand analytics is there is a search term ranking. And it looks a lot like search volume when you just look at, it's 20,000, 50,000, there's a number there. That is not the search volume. It's search rank. So the closer to 1, the better. So on merchant words, the closer to 1 million is better, right? Or above. And on brand analytics, the closer to 1 is better.
Yeah, that's value bomb after value bomb right there. Thank you, Robyn. And also with the brand analytics, market basket analysis is something some people don't even know about, and some people don't look into too much. But if you guys do want to figure out what to bundle with, you can see what people are checking out in their cart with your product. So that's a very some really good information there if you're looking to possibly scale or bundle with another product. Yeah, we've had people contact us at Merchant Words regarding, they said, the search volume on the brand analytics doesn't match up to your search volume, but we're like, well, that's not the search volume, it is the ranking. So, thank you for clarifying that for our listeners out there. Robyn, we like to give our listeners, we're going to wrap this up soon here, and towards the end, we always like to get some expert advice from an expert like you. And we'd like to give our listeners at least one tip or strategy or trick that they can take away after listening to this podcast, and then go ahead and implement it into their business today, right after they listen to this. If you can give us an actionable pro tip for our listeners out there, that'd be awesome.
Is it okay if I give you more than one?
Please. Yes, that'd be awesome.
Okay, so I'm going to assume that most people listen to Merchant Words podcast because they're trying to figure out how to optimize their listing. So the first thing that I want you to look up and identify a report that's going to be really helpful in identifying whether or not the changes that you're making on your listing are actually working the way that you want them to. It also allows you to identify whether you have a traffic problem or a conversion problem. And that's the detailed sales and traffic report by child. So you go to reports, business reports, and then along the side there, you'll see one that says detailed sales and traffic. And especially if you have red, blue, green, blue, then you're gonna wanna go by child. And so you can see whether or not, is the problem that I'm not getting sales because nobody's seeing my listing or because nobody's actually buying? Now, once you get to that piece and you say, okay, if it's a conversion problem, then I want you to look at things like, do your images tell everything that somebody needs to know? Are people asking questions that should have been answered in the images and the bullets? And then I want you to also look at the reviews. What are people saying that they loved? What are people saying that they hated? And make sure that everything is that with without the images, the bullets and the title by themselves to have that information. And then without the bullets, the title and images still convey all those the most important pieces of information. The reason for that is on mobile, the only thing you see without scrolling down is the title and the images. So for mobile first optimization, we really want to make sure we have infographics that re-highlight any important features, and then also anything that maybe has been causing returns for us. So if you see that, people are saying that this is the different size than I thought it would be, or it fits too tightly, then we want to have an infographic in there that says snug fit for, to make you look great, or something along those lines. Now, once you have those pieces done and you're still trying to figure out, okay, well, it wasn't one of those pieces that was missing, I want you to go into Merchant Words and do a reverse ASIN search for your product and who you think is your most direct competitor. And I want you to look at how many search terms they're indexed for versus how many search terms you're indexed for. If there's a big discrepancy there, that tells you that you need to really rework the back end of your structured data and using advertising and maybe some special programs that you want to try to index for additional words. And sometimes this is easy as kind of replacing a word that you've used multiple times with a different version of the word. And sometimes it really is going into the flat file and adding things like genre and some of the more structured data like color that you can allow you to index for additional words. But also remember, as you get conversions from advertising and as people come through that advertising, and you can kind of gain relevancy through a halo effect from kind of these clicks and buys. And you're also going to get additional indexing through reviews. So this is just something to keep in mind, that everything that you do is holistically. I think 3 years ago, I would have said listing optimization is strategy A and advertising is strategy B. And that really was the case 3 years ago. Today, they're really one strategy together. And if you're using one without the other, I pretty much can guarantee you're leaving money on the table or burning money on the table. So they really have to go together. And then make sure that you've really looked into those special programs. So these are things like brand registry, things like sponsored brand, sponsored display has been really good for some of our clients. Subscribe and save, Amazon Business. These are really important things. And then, if you have additional questions, I'm going to also give you a Facebook group. We have a listing support group that you're welcome to come and join. And that allows you to really look at, say, like, I have a specific question about my grocery product or about my, or I got this specific error code. I got the 55665 error, and I'm not really sure how to fix that. We can kind of answer those questions. Several of my team members are in that group, and we try to answer them as quickly as we can, but always feel free to tag me again. Sometimes we just get busy and we miss one.
Robyn, wow, thank you so much for all of that. I hope you guys are taking notes right there. And another question I had about the back-end fields is, do you see, what other back-end fields do you see that really matter, like subject matter and those other fields back there, other than the search term field?
So there's some myths and some truths about flat files. So flat files are basically, if you heard the term but you're not really sure what it is basically uploading your listing in a spreadsheet versus in doing in the interface. If you're going to do it in the interface, there's a tab called Other that you can go in and add additional things. But we find that our listing changes happen easier. And in my podcast, we actually had a whole episode on how to get Amazon to accept your listing changes. And we're happy to answer questions on that as well. But when it comes to like the different fields, first always go for the ones that are required. And then also if you go into your specific category, you're going to see that certain fields have those little click boxes where you click blue and it filters by blue. Those ones are, I would say, the most vital. I heard somebody say, like, if you fill out all the fields, then nobody can overwrite those fields. I got bad news. That's not how that works. I like the idea of it, but if it was that easy, trust me, that would have been exploited a long time ago.
That'd be nice. That would be nice.
So, but you do want to fill out as many as are applicable, and that. And you kind of look at, well, okay, so if I need to talk about this color as I'm trying to think of something like tumbler, cup, mug, and I need to, for some reason, use all of those words. If one of the filters has that in the word, and it's not going to be missing that word in the bullets, so it would be a word that would normally go in my back-end keywords, then that's going to be one more word that I can put in those back-ends. So the prioritization that I usually follow is, most important words to identify whether this is the right product for me or not, without keyword stuffing. That goes in the title.
Mm-hmm.
The next tier of most important words, and we prioritize relevancy over search volume, and we're going to look at the frequency that those come up with to identify, and that's really something that the Merchant Words Digital Shelf it does for you. So if you're using that product, it can be really, really valuable. And in our Facebook group, we actually had George on talking about the Digital Shelf Report. And then once we've used up those top tier spots, then what we're going to do then, a lot of people then take the ones that were left over and they immediately put them in the back end search terms. We're missing a little step there. The next step is to start filling out your flat file and making sure that there's no place else that one of those words would appropriately fit. And the reason I can't say use this column or use this column is if you haven't noticed, every flat file for every category is different. And it can be super frustrating. And so you really need to make sure that you're really looking at that. The one thing that can really cause people a lot of trouble is that with flat files is they'll go through to try to do that, but they don't realize that certain columns have accepted values. So there's certain columns that if you type BLUE, red, or if you type in, if you put it as a plural instead of a singular, then it won't accept that at all. It will reject your entire flat file. So it's understanding really that the flat files are really important, and we have a video that can help you with that too. But I think the bigger thing is there's a lot of training in there from Amazon about flat files or YouTube channels, and they seem really overwhelming at first. And the first couple times you go to upload it, you'll think that this is stupid. There's no way that this can be faster. But as an agency, I can tell you that if you have a wide product mix, then you are going to want to learn flat files. It will save you so much time, so many labor hours. We've had where companies have been doing it themselves and they expected us to have to clock, maybe 70 or 80 hours to kind of get something done based off of their estimates. And we were able to get it done in 15 or 20 hours, because, and most of that was kind of going back and forth to get the information from them, not really the flat file piece. So it saves a ton of time, and it makes things like parent-child variations a lot simpler, and it allows you to make kind of mass updates. So let's say you need to change the bottom bullet of all of your products. You can do that in less than 20 minutes on a flat file, where that might take you 7 or 8 hours, depending on the product size, mix size, in the interface.
Yeah, absolutely. Those flat files save a lot of time. Robyn, thank you for each value bomb after value bomb. Really appreciate your time on here. And if you can just let our listeners know, where can they find you? Where can they contact you? And also let them know the name of your podcast as well, please.
Yeah, so the podcast is called Marketplace Blueprints, and has some, like Amazon listing and things along on the end of it. It's a blue logo. And then we have a Facebook group that's called, and you can get to that by going to marketplaceblueprint.com/Facebook. If you take off the Facebook, then that'll take you to our website. So just marketplaceblueprint.com. And I suppose you probably can guess what my email is. It's Robyn, ROBYN, like why does she talk so fast? Robyn@marketplaceblueprint.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think I have some barking dogs and gardener lawnmowers in the background here. Hopefully our listeners don't mind. Well, Robyn, thank you again so much for coming on. Again, really appreciate your time and you taking the time out of your day to come on with us here at the Merchant Words Podcast. And I wish you all the best. And guys, please go ahead and contact Robyn if you need any of those types of services. She can definitely help you out. She's one of the best in the business. And yeah, till next time, everybody stay awesome and be awesome.
Thanks for having me on. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Robyn.
Bye.
Bye. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. And if you got any value out of this podcast at all, please let us know at the place that you listen to it at, whether it be iTunes, Stitcher, whatever it is. Give us some love, give us an awesome review, and let us know maybe some things you want us to talk about on the next podcast. Until next time, guys, stay awesome and be awesome.